The FDA has approved a phase 2 clinical trial called MJP2, investigating the use of inhaled high THC cannabis flower to treat PTSD following a 3-year delay due to safety concerns. Sponsored by the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, also known as MAPS, and funded by a $12.9 million grant in Michigan. The trial will involve 320 veterans with moderate to severe PTSD. Participants can self-titrate. Is that how you pronounce it? Titrate?
Yeah, titrate. Yep.
Titrate their dosage, mirroring commercially available THC potencies in legalized states. MJP2 builds on findings from its predecessor, MJP1, which showed significant improvement in PTSD symptoms, including anxiety, depression, and sleep quality. The FDA had previously blocked MJP2, thanks Joe Biden, over concerns about high THC cannabis and self-dosing, but has now approved the trial with additional safety measures for vaporization devices. MAPS founder Rick Doblin emphasized the organization's commitment to advancing innovative research that challenges traditional FDA approaches, while principal investigator Sue Sisley highlighted the trial's potential to inform treatment plans for veterans with PTSD. While proponents like MAPS highlight the potential benefits of cannabis in treating PTSD symptoms, critics like Duke University's Harold Cudler question its efficacy based on prior research. Still hate Duke, always have hated Duke, go Tar Heels. Still, Cudler supports further study. Approximately 1.1 million U.S. veterans suffer from PTSD, underlining the demand for new treatments. In my opinion, this trial is a huge win for all Americans. Not only does it align with the broader bipartisan trends toward federal cannabis policy reform and discussions on reclassifying cannabis to Schedule III, but it's also a victory for the American society, sick and tired of seeing its soldiers fight wars domestic and abroad that are driven by unbridled capitalism in the military-industrial complex, only to return back to American society, which they once called home, also sick and tired from the traumas that they have experienced just to be pumped full of ineffective opioids. Let's all hope that that its findings open the door to broader access and less stigma for veterans and everybody else, for that matter, from the powers that be when it comes to recognizing and administering cannabis as it was intended to be all along. Medicine. I'm Rico Lamitte, the dopest dad on the street for High at 9 News. Oh, a little bright one. Start the day off today, man.
I mean, how did MAPS get this money to fund this?
And yet another category. Is Michigan the new California?
Oh, boy. I mean, I don't understand how they got this money to do this after their whole little escapade that they just recently had.
Big Gretch, bro. Big Gretch is pro-cannabis.
Persistence, maybe.
Persistence. Okay.
You know, I love that they're using whole flower in the study. That's really the part that stands out to me, because typically funded studies are looking only at single agent, but we know that the consumer uses the whole flower. And so it's better to study what the consumer uses, right? So I'm excited that this is they're looking at whole flower.
Dr. T, isn't it crazy that previously they only allowed veterans to participate that were regular smokers or that had been like lifelong smokers? They wouldn't allow like anybody who hasn't participated. But if they hadn't participated, that means that their VA rights weren't jeopardized. So I mean, like, it kind of seemed like entrapment. The last version of this test, so like, oh, like you can go ahead and be a guinea pig. You're gonna lose your benefits.
Yeah. Maybe there's some, anonymous clause that keeps people's personal information out of it so that they can't be trapped. But yeah, it kind of is asking people who were using cannabis previously. But people are legally using cannabis, under the state laws.
Right.
I mean,
that might be only federal entrapment. Yeah.
People's information isn't kept from anything else, so why would we think that it's going to be kept away from this study?
because that's the way studies are built. That you have to go to an institutional review board. There's actually a group of people who look at the ethics of the study and protect the subject rights. This all came from the Tuskegee experiments where they weren't protecting the subject rights. So there's a lot of positive laws protecting.
There's a lot of precedents that has been already previously made in regards to this, you're saying, Dr. T.
Correct.
Interesting. Well, I think overall, Rico, I can't believe you found a good news story on a Friday.
You're talking about, man, I've been positive all week, bro.
I bet. Jenny, what do you have to say about this?
All week.
I just got here.
You just got here? Oh, so she sounds like she had a rough night last night. No?
She's on JB time.
You know, we have 3 JBs on the show on Fridays and Mondays now.
She's
JB to the third power.
Yeah, pretty fascinating. Dr. Mark, you have any thoughts on this study?
Yeah, it's all good.
It's all good.
You know, riding the psychedelic wave. You know, I mean, there's a whole renaissance in psychedelic medicines. It's great that there's clinical trials going on, and you know, I'm not a purist about. I think Matthew St. Germain would have some words to say about this, about separating the molecules in the therapy from the experience that you would get if you're being administered to by a shaman down in the Brazil jungle, right? So Dr. Talleyrand, I see you nodding your head. We've had this discussion before where, you know, can you take these natural entheogens and medicines from various places in the world into the clinic, and is that appropriate to inspire, again, the use of these things, which will probably reduce harm and be able to treat the conditions?
You know, I think the answer is yes, Mark. Yeah. Well, yeah, and I point to biologics. They are multi-agents essentially, and they have been approved by the FDA. So I think we can work something out. It just, we need to have the conversation.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I guess from Matthew's perspective too, that's like an exploitation of native cultures and having, you know, again, there's being the ones that discovered these things, there should be some type of, I don't know, maybe reinvestment back into the Amazon or some type of way of returning that knowledge back from the people who you know, pioneered it, right?
Sounds like you're advocating for psychedelic reparations, Dr. Mark.
In a way, right? But you know, I mean, if it's a way that you know, again, I think like during pandemic things got kind of screwed up, but before that,
you think things got kind of screwed up during the pandemic, really?
Was it screwed up during the pandemic? But there became now a booming business for psychotourism down in the jungle. Right? So people were selling, you know, all-inclusive packages to have ayahuasca in the right settings.
Well, yeah, you didn't. No, I think a lot of that happened because you didn't have to wear a mask in those settings.
You know, probably right. You don't want to wear a mask, I think, when you consume ayahuasca.
Exactly.
That's a good one.
I think Jason just likes saying reparations over and over again in an effort to trigger people. Now that
Stop it,
that he's effectively giving reparations to white men.
I've never tried to trigger anyone, Rico. I do not try to trigger anyone. That is not my MO. That's your MO.
I love you, Jason.
That's your
you love
MO.
stirring the pot as much as I do. Come on now.
Look at Jesse.
Like
Jesse got the big old
separates.
grin on his face. Jesse, what do you have to say about this?
It all sounds good to me. I loved what Dr. Mark said. This is just good for entheogens in general. I love that you use that word, which leans into my story, which is coming later. But yeah, it sounds good to me. The curious thing that stood out to me was the 3 years of delay based on safety concerns. What were the safety concerns? They were worried about the consumption of flower in some way? Was there any clarity on that, or?
I think the safety concerns is they were trying to say that if we remove these plants, it's bad for the environment.
No, they're saying like they're saying inhaling cannabis is bad.
It's the argument. It's the argument about
because they're smoking it. Like this study is about smoking it. I didn't catch that part.
They're allowing them. They want to replicate the normal American's experience when going to a dispensary. You can get your own weed. You can smoke high grade, low grade, whatever you want. They want real results. The other one it wasn't like really anything real about it. It's super duper controlled, and like nobody's gonna take a bunch of THC pills or or just ingestibles. Like let's keep it a buck.
So we're gonna get information about smoking cannabis out of this that's really direct that we don't seem to really have.
Yeah, that's why I said I think it's a win
awesome
for everybody. I think it's a win for everybody, not just the veterans. It's a win for the cannabis community overall. It's a win for science. And a chance for us to actually show these motherfuckers like, yo, we've known this for years. Dr. T, you have known this for years. Like way before all these other doctors, you too, Dr. Mark, way before these other mainstream doctors got on the bandwagon. It's something that we've known in the cannabis community for decades, for generations. And now, guess what? Prove it to whatever the government is now.
That's awesome.
Oh, boy. And on that, we're going to go to a commercial, and we're going to be right back.